everybody, welcome back to episode 7. We're calling it Freaky Friday, and you'll get the joke in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But welcome. So today we're going to talk about some pictures, which I think will be interesting to do via podcast.
Yeah.
But we will be sharing, I'll put these into the video, they'll be shared on the Instagram and all of our Facebook everything pages, so you can see what we're talking about. But they are some very interesting pictures that KJ found on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And the Freaky Friday joke is that they are all backwards.
Yeah.
So where you might usually see a black person or historically see a black person, you'll see a white person and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So we're going to pop them up. We're just going to kind of talk about what either one of us feels about it or our experience with something similar and go from there.
Yeah.
That cover it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just to kind of give some context to, like, the reason I sent it to you. Mm-hmm. So a friend, I can't remember who it was, but they posted it, and I went, holy cow. And then I didn't even get through all the photos. Mm-hmm. I got through, 2, and then I immediately sent them to you. I was like, this is crazy. So it was the gut reaction was just geez. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was like, we should probably, I don't know, talk about it.
Yeah.
But
no, they were, it was a very, they kind of slapped. Oh, yeah, the first one, I kind of looked at and was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And then you go back and you're like, holy cow, no, that kind of smacks you in the face a little bit. Yeah. And then some of them it's a little harder to relate to, so, not quite as much emotion, but definitely makes you think a little. So to be honest, I was trying to find the photographers for all these, and I'm not quite sure if we could, but we'll source them from where we got them, and that we'll do our best to make the connection. Yeah. But so this first one is a little girl. She's probably 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, if that.
In a store, looking at a wall of dolls, and she's a little white girl, and it's a wall of black
dolls.
And no, they're all black.
No, they're all black.
Yeah. Maybe Native American, but no, they're all black. So it's American Girl dolls style. So it looks like some Cabbage Patchy type things up top. Mm-hmm. And she's just staring at this wall of dolls. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, this one, I looked at it at first, and I was like, oh, it's a modern picture. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool, we have black dolls in the
okay.
That was kind of my first reaction, was not so much oh, she can't find anybody that looks like her.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But then I started to think about back to American Girl dolls. Mm-hmm. That was my first connection to this, and when they came out, they were 5. Mm-hmm. And they all had their story and their whatever, and I looked like Kirsten, so Kirsten was my story. Mm-hmm. I had blonde hair, blue eyes, voila, there I was. Mm-hmm. And Courtney was Samantha, brown hair, brown eyes, had her story, good to go. A few years later, my cousin and aunt and my mom and sister and I were in Chicago at the American Girl doll store, and that's when they just started making their My Doll. So my sister got to make a doll that looked like her and had black hair and brown eyes and whatever. And I remember being really excited about it. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't black. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, if you're a black girl, I remember Addie came out at one point, and she was the black girl, she had her story, and so, props to them, that was, 25, 30, or 20 years ago that she came out, but it just was, that never crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm. So, well, you were a child.
Just, I tell you, even until it's become a conversation, I couldn't tell you that I walked down a store and thought, wow, there's no black Barbies or dolls or whatever.
Well, I don't think that, I don't really think that you needed to look for that. So,
That's
right?
Just
why
it,
would you, yeah.
It was never, but I remember, I think of the excitement I had finding a doll that looked like me. Mm-hmm. And I think, was there a whole race that never had that? Yeah. And that's what I totally can't relate to that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I can't relate to anything that you just said.
Well, and
literally, growing up, for context, I obviously wasn't the most girliest girl in the world. I'm still not, but I did those things because that's what every little girl does, mm-hmm. right? But I didn't really get dolls as a kid, and when I did get a doll, they were white.
Right.
90% of the time it was a white doll. And then, you kind of started to see, your Native American ones kind of come. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, there was, for me, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, and they can definitely, comment or give their opinion on it, but I didn't relate or get excited about that because none of those dolls look like me.
Mm-hmm.
And then not to mention, like, if there was a black doll, there's so many shades of black.
Yeah.
I've never seen a doll and ever didn't look like me. So it's like, that picture for me had a completely different feeling in the sense of, like, it was powerful because for the first time ever, without speaking, could, like, show this to a white person and be like, this is what it feels like every day to live in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every day. Like, I walk around every day, all day, with little to no representation of, like, who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we talked about it before. Media, right? Like, other than, like, comedians, right? Or, like, you know, sports. Your daily things. Like, imagine, like, me trying to raise a kid right now. There's more.
Right.
But, like, my kid could never do that. Like, that would be awesome. Like, if I could ever bring a child in this world and we can go into a department store and there's an entire wall. Just even, like, one wall. I don't even need the whole store. One wall and be like, hey, pick a doll. Like, pick the one that... Get excited about the one that represents you. So, like, to listen to you have that, like, that was actually kind of interesting because I was like, that was not my childhood.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't awarded that opportunity to
Was it ever a conversation? Like, were you conscious of it? Were you consciously conscious? Like, I'm sure it, like, came across here and there, like, oh, there's no doll that looks like me. But, like, was it a conversation? Was it something that your mom was like, hey, they don't make you?
No. It's a lot like, I would say most people's childhood, again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but in my regard, or like in my family, or like my sister, when you grow up as a person of color, predominantly in suburbia, right, you accept a lot of things. There's no conversation. Mm-hmm. It's your world, it's your reality, it's your life. So there doesn't need to be a conversation about it. Like, no one needs to talk to you about it. You know you're different because you're different, right? You go to the store, you walk in the store. I mean, even now, like, I can go into any store and, like, I might see another black person. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not a guarantee. I might. Right? So that's the same thing growing up. Like, say in school, in class. Like, I might see another black kid in school. Mm-hmm. I might have one in my gym class. I might have one in chemistry. I might, right? Like, it isn't until you get older and you get to, like, you choose, right? Bigger universities, bigger pool of people, right? Mm-hmm. Ideally, the more people around you, the more people you should start to see that look like you. But, yeah, so no, there wasn't any conversation. It just, that's what it was. And you almost, in a weird way, become conditioned to it. So, like, I didn't ask, particularly for a doll that looked like me. I was conditioned to want the doll that everybody else wanted. Right? Or want the toy that everybody else wanted. Or like the Power Ranger that everybody else liked. Right? Like, I didn't favor the black Power Ranger. Like, I was like, ooh, she looks like me.
Right.
No. But at that point, I think I was almost, like, too old to really, like, be paying attention to what had happened to my, like, psyche as a child.
Sure.
But no, we didn't talk about it. I didn't, like, cry or, like, anything or was, like, upset about it, but I didn't have that excitement. It's like, Christmas time came around. I do remember when I got my first black doll, I thought that was really cool. Like, that was very, like, oh, wow. But it wasn't, like, an excitement of, like, oh, this doll looks like me. It was an excitement of, like, oh, this doll's black. Like, it was just, like, oh, wow. Like, you know, it was so different that it was, like, that level of excitement. And I was like, no way. Like, this exists.
Right.
So I had that. That was my kind of rendition of that excitement.
It's so interesting to think about, like, to a certain extent, like, this is the definition of just being a minority. Mm-hmm. So, like, I mean, I think of, like, when I do my job on a daily basis with my products, and at the end of the year I sit there and go, what products should I get rid of? Yeah. I should get rid of the ones that don't sell a lot. Yeah. And, okay, I'm making the companies, I'm being very soft to them right now, so please don't take that. But, like, you look at them, like, okay, if you look at the majority of who's going to be buying this doll, like, if you're streamlining, going for the largest demographic, like, yeah, you're going to go for white people. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see, like, there's a balance. Like, when I try to think of, like, okay, if you tried to make a doll that looked like every girl out there, like, you couldn't. Mm-hmm. So there's never going to be a store that has one that matches everybody. No. But, you know, we can improve.
Yeah. I think that's the problem. I think that's the issue is, like, and I don't want to speak for all companies again, but we spend too much time. That's where you get in the weeds when you're trying, when your niche is to try to find that all-American, that you can't do that. You already set yourself up for failure because people look different. Even white people look different from one another. So the fact that you even went down that rabbit hole of trying to have a doll that fits every single person, it's never going to happen.
Right.
You can't accomplish it, right? But what you can do is instead of chasing dollars, why don't you chase, like, inclusion?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because black people have money too. And a lot of kids too. And heritage and traditions and Christmases and Kwanzas and Hanukkahs and all that stuff, right? They celebrate. They want to celebrate their hard-earned money by paying for things that their children or that they will enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I understand that you're trying to make a buck, but you're missing a really big group of people and you're not even actually giving them an opportunity to spend their money.
Right.
So, yeah, you could be like, well, the majority of the world is white. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. There's still money out there.
Right.
Money's money.
Well, and to contradict myself, I'm good at that today. Like, as a white person, like, I don't want my kid to only have white dolls.
Like,
I want them to know that, like,
that.
hey, there are black people in this world, there are black dolls, and you're going to have both.
Yeah, and it should be that way. Like, if there's a collection, like, take, just because we're on the topic of, like, American Girl dolls and stuff like that, if there's a collection of dolls, I would want my kid to have all of them. It's like the Beanie Babies.
Yeah. Okay,
right?
There's a lot of those.
That's true. But the point is to collect them.
Right.
Right? And to play with them and, like, your child wants to have them all, so we need to do a better job of marketing in some capacity for your kid or you as the parent buying toys for your kid or a doll for your kid to want to have them all. And if they all look the same, I'm not buying them all.
Right.
Right? Like if I'm a parent, I mean even like shopping for like cousins or like friends' kids and stuff like that, I walk in the store, to this day, like 90% of the dolls they look the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're like blonde hair, blue eyes, or blonde hair, brown eyes, or brown hair and blue eyes. Like, it doesn't matter, right? It's like I have to go out of my way to find the couple of colored, and I don't even see Native American dolls. Like, I don't even see really, like...
I'll, like, insert a very poorly Pocahontas joke here, but...
Yeah. But no, seriously, like, I don't even really see it.
There's one!
Yeah, and it's always, like, a legit dressed-up traditional Native American. It's like, why can't that kid just be Native American and, like, wear clothes like everybody else? Right? Like... And then, like,
I don't wear jeans.
Yeah, they don't wear jeans. They don't do that. And, like, or, like, Asians, like, right, that's even smaller. Mm-hmm. And then, like, half of the way that they look, it's not even really true. It's, like, the exaggerated version of, like, what we think a Native American or an Asian kid looks like, right? So it's, like, it's interesting that it's basically, like, you got a pie chart and it's, like, 75% is white, and then it's like the other like 25% is just chopped up really tiny with like what white people think those other like right like other ethnicities look like, and it's like enough to sprinkle it in so that you can say, oh, we have that in our collection, we have that in our you have it, but you're not catering to anybody. Right.
Yeah.
You're not trying to boost those sales. There's a lot of Asians out here with a lot of money, and I'm sure if you had a whole shelf full of dolls, they'd probably buy them.
Right.
And there's a lot of different types of Asians. If you really want to get, even further in the weeds, they're not just one Asian doll to represent all the Asians.
Right.
Like,
that's what I love to point out. Like, Russians are Asians.
Yeah.
I'll just throw that out there.
That's funny.
They don't like. I don't think a lot of Russians call themselves Asians.
No, we just lost.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to our 3 Russian followers.
We ruined it. There you go. My boss is Russian. He's not listening.
Actually, let's ask him. That'll be a great follow-up to see if he calls himself Asian or
He's
not.
gonna be like, I'm never listening to your podcast again.
Yeah. Until he's a guest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Did I reel him back in?
You did.
Okay, well, that was an interesting one. I thought this was
Yeah. It was good. Like I said, it was the first time that without me trying to explain what it feels like every day to walk around as a person of color, it like showed it. Because that's literally it. Even with like hair stuff, like the stuff that I use on my hair, if I go to Target, 50-50 chance I'll find it. Like I actually just had to order some stuff online because, with Corona and everything going on and supplies and stuff, like it was a struggle to try to find that thing. And it's like, I kid you not, it's in the ethnic section. It is literally one shelf thing. It's not even a full one. It's one shelf thing, and it's at the bottom shelf. It's on the bottom.
It's just so... That's another.
It's not even eye level, which as a marketing student,
Right.
I understand the reasoning behind shelves.
Right.
It's on the bottom.
It's just unfortunate too that it's even like an ethnic section.
Yeah.
Like, why is it not just like
Hair.
I
Products.
mean, don't get me wrong. I get that it could be like in its own area, but it doesn't need to be identified as anything.
And it shouldn't even be a section. If the section isn't a full section, don't call it a section.
I mean, like, I mean, section like Herbal Essence is here, and Pantene is here, and like
and
whatever your brand is here. Like,
yep.
I just, I mean,
it's interesting, huh?
I mean, it's like the Mexican aisle at
yeah.
Which, I mean, I appreciate it because I use it a lot, but it's like it's not a lot of Mexican food.
No. I wonder about that too. Like my, Hispanic friends, tell me about that. Like, does that bother you as well? Like, when they try to have the representation for you, but it it's very minimal. So it's almost like, is it worth it? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but like, I feel like that's intense. I'm like, just if you're only gonna have like 3 things, just sprinkle it in with everything else, and I'll find it. If it's beans, it's beans. If it's hair gel, it's hair gel. If it, you know what I mean? Like, I know where that aisle is, so I'll just go find it. Like. So I don't know. It's interesting.
No, now you go to get beans, black beans, and they're in the Mexican and the bean aisle. So riddle me that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is a nail salon, and it is a bunch of women getting pedicures. And the women getting pedicures are Asians, and the women giving pedicures are Caucasian. Yeah, I think they all are.
Yeah, they're all white.
So it is. Very stereotypically opposite, that was not well said, opposite of what you think you're going to get in a nail salon. Mm-hmm. And this one, actually, you sent it like right around the time I had read something, and this definitely will require some fact checking, but I'll do my best and include what I can find. It was about some lady who, she went to visit our troops, and she had a very beautiful manicure. Okay. And the Vietnamese women thought this was like the coolest thing and wanted to know more about it. So the story or the legend is that she taught all these Vietnamese women how to do manicures. And when they started immigrating and coming here, they grew it into this whole thing. And that's like how Vietnamese women took over the nail industry.
Interesting.
Requires some fact checking, absolutely. But I just thought, like, that whole story was about like little events that changed history. Okay. So that's kind of where that came from. So I honestly looked at this and I kind of thought, like, to be honest, like, I don't know if I feel bad about that one, if that has some truth to it. Mm-hmm. But as somebody who loves pedicures, this was interesting to me just because, like, honestly, if I saw a white woman like offering them, it'd be weird. It'd be very different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't really know, like, the validity of that story, and I'm not really sure, but, like, what I thought about when you said that was, well, if that white woman taught the Vietnamese people how to do that, where did all those other people go?
That was definitely a thought of mine.
Right? And
either
why did
there was
those
a much
people
smaller industry back then.
Sure.
Or, like, they actually just took over when they came.
Yeah, but like really, like let's be honest, like
price sharks. That's how it was. They undercut the market.
Maybe, but who wouldn't have got mad about that? You know how many times you hear, especially right now, and I'm like obviously being ridiculous, but it's like, oh, go back to where you came from. You're stealing our job. If we say that now in 2020, like how in the world did an entire Vietnamese culture just come over here and steal all those American jobs?
Right.
Like I find that interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, but. I mean, I'm not saying there's no truth to it.
No,
but that's the thought I had. I'm like, that's a really aggressive industry.
That's a huge takeover.
You took over literally the entire United States.
So we're going to fact check that a little more. But it was, if anything, if it has any bit of truth, and it shows like how they might have been introduced to it maybe, that could be interesting.
I feel like that's going to have a really sad story. I feel like that's going to have a plot twist where it's like, that was the only form of income, and they like... were pushed into this life of like nail solidarity and like I'm telling you that it's gonna
all the dry cleaners and the nail salon.
Oh, it's gonna have a wicked plot twist. I just have a feeling.
just for the record, for everybody who's watching and listening, there's some crazy thunder.
Yeah, we're having thunder.
And I'm really enjoying it, so don't mind my distraction.
Or if you're watching, that lightning is pretty dope.
I'll be honest, like, this one didn't, like, do a whole lot as far as, like, making me feel good or bad in any direction, but it was just an interesting dynamic to just look at it a little differently. And, like, I have had white people do my nails before. Okay. But honestly, in, like, nice salons. Okay. You go to, like, USA Nails or, like, you know, America Nails, I expect to not pay a lot and not understand what they're saying.
Okay, interesting.
So it's, I can't say that I've experienced like a white person.
I didn't connect with this because it's neither one of my cultures. So like, and I don't get my nails done, so I have no idea. But I do know the jokes behind it. Like, you know, Angela Johnson, the comedian or whatever, she's got a whole bit about, she's got a whole bit about,
I hope this is okay.
Like,
we're recording. You can take it. Leave the door cracked so that I can get out. Yeah. Thanks.
No, it's okay. We'll just talk. So Angela Johnson, she has a whole bit about like the nail salon. And like when she goes to get her nails done, and it's like, it's super funny. So like my only connection to this picture is all of the stereotypical jokes that I've heard. So I would be interested to hear, you know, anyone who is of whatever, I don't even care like what Asian descent you are, like what your thoughts are, like take a look at this picture and like what emotions does that elicit, because I don't have a personal connection to it.
Sure.
So I don't really want to.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting one too, that like, I mean, it's got white people doing the pedicures here, but like black girls get their nails done aplenty. Oh, yeah. So, you know, to see like how, you know, if it was the opposite that way, you know, if there are black people giving it to Asians, like, well, you know, what are your thoughts, what are your opinions, and you know, and some of these, like, the doll thing, it's very active, like, should we address this and make a change? This one to me is like, should we address this and make a change? I don't know. Like, are Asians upset that they're the ones giving pedicures? I'd be very curious. If you have any experience with this, please share.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, maybe it was a type of liberation. Right? It could have a positive story in the sense of like that was our way that we came here and made a life for ourselves and did X, Y, and Z and grew. But like I said, I don't know enough about it to speak on it.
Okay. Interesting. All right, so this next one is kicking it old school.
Yeah.
This is one that I can appreciate the point. I don't have experience in any of it, so kind of to your point, the last one. So what it is a very beautiful old style bedroom. A black lady is getting very elegantly. That's a master bedroom. She's getting very elegantly ready for an evening, and there is a wet nurse feeding her baby, breastfeeding her baby, and the wet nurse is white. And historically, these would be opposite roles. You have a white lady getting ready, and a lot of wet nurses are traditionally black. Yeah. So this one, like I said, I get the point of it. I don't have experience getting dressed up or having a wet nurse.
Yes. Yeah.
But what did this one do to you?
I liked it. I think it was a really powerful. When you peel back like the obviousness of it, and you really kind of start to look at like the relationship that women have, like white and black women have historically through times. I mean, we had the podcast about the Virginia slave codes, right? And like how we talked about that white women, and I mean even now, will gentrify neighborhoods and have this power over black men, or have this sense of like they're untouchable, right? It kind of gave me that vibe, like where I'm like, it stems so far back that we just don't even realize that like white women in general just have always kind of maybe had this sense of like, I don't want to say arrogance, but authority, and have known that they've had this sense of power over people. And that's really kind of the vibe that I got when I saw it. It was just like, wow, like this is so, it dates back so far and for so long that like this picture, if the roles were reversed, like, you know what I mean? And like for white women, I think it can be something that they can look at and really realize like how much power they have and how much they've really dictated history over the years, even though a lot of them would claim like, you know, women's rights, women's this, and it's like, yeah, but you've had some like subtle power that has grown and really amplified over the years. So that's what I thought of when I saw it. Was like not in the traditional sense of like, oh yeah, well now you're the slave and now you're taking care of the baby.
Sure.
It was like, no, like now you don't have the power anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, and that's such a cool how you can get different perspectives
from the same picture.
Because like honestly, I saw this and like I understand like the history of wet nurses and like it hasn't always been a very glorified role, but there are some cultures where like it takes a village, like comes from something like this, where there are women who are taking care and feeding each other's babies. So I look back at the role of a wet nurse and think like, while it wasn't regarded at the time as anything important or special, there's still a certain level of trust, like to be able to think like you can feed my child, and granted I'm probably making you do it, but like I still have to think as a mother, many of these women wouldn't have handed off their baby to anybody.
I'm sure these women were handpicked. I'm sure there was a reason that they, again, I know they were forced to do it, but I'm sure there was like some validity behind why they were the ones that did it.
Right.
And I mean, it goes back to like, you know, who worked in the house and who didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who got to work with the children and who didn't. Right? Like, who had to be out there picking cotton and who actually was, like, ironing clothes and running errands and doing things, right? Like, there's something to that.
Right.
But, yeah, and not to be completely, you know, a cynic about it, there were people that worked in the house that got to know their owners and they became, as whatever definition of friends as you can say, right? And they grew fond of their owners and their family, and they were treated well. Right, and you don't hear enough of those stories, but they were there.
Sure.
Right, and I mean you kind of see it in some movies, not much now, but like older movies, they would kind of have that, and then you almost saw like resentment between the people that were like out in the fields to the people that were in the house, because they're like, oh, you've got this cushy life, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and there were also other plantation owners that they didn't really care, right? But I think that from a symbolic standpoint, like you can take a really positive look at it and go, the relationship, right, that was created, because I'm sure that there may be somebody right now that is 80-something years old and like they were living this situation. Right? And maybe they have a very fond memory of, you know, being raised by that house person or whoever that person was in their life, right? So.
Well, that's where you start to see like, okay, I maybe like to your point with the women's roles, but I almost imagine like, in that maternal way, like the relationship between the nurse and the child, like for a brief instant in that child's life, like they might have loved a black person. Yeah. You know, up till, you know, age 4, where they've been taught the hate, but
and even then, like we don't know. There's probably like so much, and not to like psychoanalyze these people, because there are these people. Some of these people are still alive, right? But there could have been such a torment between that generation of people, because it's like they were raised by, quote unquote, a black woman and grew to love and become fond of that black woman, but then everything in society is telling them like black is lesser than, and then they're just kind of like,
but like she was really nice.
She's really dope, and like now you're telling me that she can't have the things that I have. So I'm sure that was probably a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to explore.
Yeah. If anybody wants to talk about that or knows somebody that wants to talk about that, it's up.
Okay, this one, this is the first one actually. I just went in reverse order of the way they were sent to me. So this one is the one that I phased over very quickly. Okay. And then came back to and was like, holy shit, how did I miss that? Yeah. But I'll explain. Okay. So it is white men in chains, very beaten up, and they're slaves, so they look rough and like slaves. And then there's a couple black gentlemen who are holding the guns and clearly, maybe not the owners, but in charge of them, or, you know, making sure they remain chained. So this one, I think why I glanced over it is because, first of all, they're all kind of lined up. So, like, until you take a second to, like, really look at who's got what role in this picture, it's easy to just kind of see a line of men. And this is where I could get in trouble if people have strong opinions on this. I honestly looked at this and thought, okay, that's sad. But both races have been in some form of this relationship. When I look at like the Holocaust and like just all of European history, people went back and forth. and having family that was part of the Holocaust and whatnot,
Yeah.
like, I could see my grandpa in this picture. Granted, a black man wasn't holding the gun next to him, but, like, it was probably easier for me to relate to from the sad side, but the race is what you need to pay attention to in this picture. And that's where I think, like I said, I can glance over it, but then you go back and you go, oh no shit, like, these black guys are free in this picture, and these white guys are not. We did the opposite. And that's where it hurt a little more.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like it was my responsibility. Like, I did something wrong.
Yeah. No, it's such an interesting point, because I think that this photo, it will elicit very dramatic responses from people. I think people are either they're gonna either get defensive and not take it in, or they're gonna get really emotional about it. And I like the perspective you came from as far as, like, having that heritage and that family and, like, things like that. But I think it's important to make sure that what we don't do, or, you know, those of you that will be looking at the pictures, we don't, that was a good one. We don't minimize suffrage with suffrage. Because I feel like people are doing that right now, right? And they'll look at this picture and they're like, yeah, well, the Holocaust, and yeah, well...
And that's exactly what I did. Like, that was my first instinct.
Yeah, and it's natural because that's what's been taught to you, right? Like, that's what's been ingrained in you from an early age of, like, well, everybody suffered. Yeah, everybody suffered, but that was white on white, right? There has never been any suffering to this extent where it was black to white. Now, if we had, you know, some crazy situation in, like, the heart of some, I don't know, South African wherever, where it was just like this whole thing happened and there's just a bunch of black people that just had a bunch of white slaves for 400 years or something crazy like that, then
we
like,
just all missed it.
Yeah, then like let's go apples to apples for sure, right? Because like then we just get to the point where we're just changing locations, right? But there's never been that type of suffrage from a racial standpoint, right? Because yes, I'm not diminishing the Holocaust at all.
Right.
And that's the point of this. Like, yes, that was crazy. And the fact that that even happened is a whole insane thing, like, go down that freaking, right? But what I notice about people is that's their initial reaction to things that are uncomfortable is they try to diminish it with something else that, one, unfortunately, a lot of them don't even have a tie to. Right? And then I find that people who do have ties to, like, traumatic past experiences tend to be more empathetic, sympathetic to anything like that, because they're just like, they get it.
Yeah.
And that, I'm not trying to generalize, that's just my experience. But I just don't want people to look at this photo and be like, oh, well. It's like, there is no oh, well. Like, the point of that is to show you, like, your history as a white person are those photos. There was someone in somebody's bloodline, probably a lot closer to you, maybe 3-4 people ago, right, when you really do the math, that stood there proud to take that picture, right? They were happy to have that picture. And those people in those chains, they built the life that you live right now, right? So when you look at the photo, yes, the gut reaction is to be like, oh, well, this is that, or this. It's like, no, you need to think that, like, everything that you have, everything that on this American soil that has been built from the ground up was built because there are photos of people who they built that for you. They did that for you. And yeah, it might feel too far away from you to it makes sense, but I guarantee you that if you really did some digging and you started looking at some old photos, you'd find a lot like that. I will never find a photo like that.
No. Not like that.
No.
No, and I think that's so to your point of, like, you know, people's gut reaction is to, in a nice way, we'll say, is to relate to it.
Yeah. You would hope, right? That's the intent.
Yeah, you hope. I mean, we're taught, like, to relate, right? So, okay, you broke a leg, I broke an elbow, you know, things like that. So it's one thing to look at that and try to find your, because that's how you can really feel the sadness. Like, when I look at a black person chained, I can't relate because I never have been or have a connection to a black person chained. So for me to see this and think, like, okay, back to my great-grandpa and my family, like, okay, now I can feel that emotion. But then to kind of brush it off after that, like, oh, okay, well, I did that too.
Yeah.
Because there's two ways you can go. You can go that way, or you can go, like, no, yeah, my direct family was in chains and had that experience.
Yeah.
But because we were white, it was very quick to fix.
Yeah.
You look at the Holocaust, and like I have this. We love the World War II history and kind of watching those videos and documentaries and things. So we talk about it quite a bit. And I lived in Germany for a while for a work assignment, and I remember thinking at one point, like riding on a train, like, there are Nazis on this train. Like, they're literally still alive.
Yes.
Like, there are dudes who went out there and, like, shot Jews because they
literally
thought
hunted them.
And it's like, so that history is recent enough that I can touch it and I can feel it. And we, for the most part, I know it's out there and it comes and goes, but for the most part, it's gone. This history should be too far away to touch. Yeah. And we're still having this conversation. It's still here. You can still touch it. You can still feel it. And it's interesting that you say that. Like, it was easier to get past it because you were white. Like, I feel like if I were to say something like that, like, people would just jump down my throat. No, but, like, honestly, like, all the whites in the world were like, oh, save the whites. Like, okay, I mean, Jews, like, they're mostly white, historically white. Yeah. Like, if they had been black, like, would we have had the same reactions?
Well, no.
I mean, to be honest.
I mean, I think we already have an answer to that question.
I mean, I'm thinking, like, the war specifically. Like, you know, like, we didn't even really jump into the war because we wanted to save Jews. We did because they came and bombed us. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But, like, and that's really what I think is this picture does, is it brings to present a past that should be too far away to feel. And it's not. And that's why I made sure to make a point. Like, yeah, I skimmed over that picture. I was like, nope, not a problem. Yeah. And then you come back and you're like, nope. That actually, like, could happen now. With the nooses and the lynchings and the things that we're still talking about. That could happen today.
And then to think, too, like, how disrespectful people can be about when they say, get over it. Like, that's the part that just boils. They're like, well, that was... Yeah, get over it. What do you mean get over... You as the white race didn't even get over it. So how do you expect the oppressed to just get over it? Right?
You're not supposed to get over it. You're supposed to live with it.
Yeah, and grow from it. Right? That's like, I mean, to its umpteenth degree or whatever, being like, oh, you had some weird traumatic experience as a child, get over it. Right. You'd never say that to somebody. You tell them, like, hey, this happened to you. We gotta find a way to get through it. Right? Not over it. Right. Not around it. Through it. And then it shapes who you are as a person, and you learn how to handle situations that maybe are similar to it or could be that way in the future. Right. We never went through it. So now guess what? We're going through it. We're going through it. We went around it.
We're still in the
we sidestepped
12 steps or
right. Like now we're going through it. But yeah, like so that's what that picture did for me. It was just like it was an interesting one because at first glance you kind of look at it and you're just like, oh, okay, the role reversal, and you kind of gloss over it. It's just like a natural thing to do. But then like as you think about it, I'm like I took the whole family photos. Like that's where I went with like someone's lineage. Like you can go through someone's old whatever beat up boxes that have been passed down through whatever, and like you will find photos like that. I mean, even like the casual killing act. Like there's literally people that was someone's family. Like that was probably somebody's grandma who was like a kid just standing next to this man being hung from a tree. People were like smiling, trying to get in the photo, and it's like it's insane to think about that. I will never have that. So when you try to take suffrage and be like, well, we had the Holocaust and we had this, I'm not trying to diminish it at all, but like as you mentioned, like that was still white people.
Right.
Like,
and because they were white, we've more or less addressed it. And that's
it's wild.
No, and I think so. These pictures, that's last of them, but when you look at them one by one, like you get the role reversal, you can take what you want from anyone. But then you put them all back together, and you look at it as a collection of, okay, one by one, you can see where it's not just like, okay, you can't find a doll. Oh, okay, at one point you were a slave. Oh, okay, at one point women were reversed. But it's like, these are all different periods of time.
Yeah.
And at some point you have to make a connection with one of them. Like, there's no way you can see these all and not have a feeling towards one. And it's not to say like, okay, slavery, like that picture shouldn't happen again. It's more, it should be gone.
Yes.
You know, the whole wet nurse concept, everything. Like at this point, if you're a wet nurse, I think you're probably volunteering.
Yes.
You know? The nail salon thing, like again, we'll take some feedback on that one.
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
I don't know, do more white people want to do this? Do Asians want to get out of it? I don't know.
Right, I don't know.
The doll thing, like that's an active thing that is being addressed, but you know,
It's
it can
still prevalent.
still be something we're working on. So, you know, how do we make sure that, you know, 20, 30, 100 years from now, there isn't the next set of these photos of something else that was another role reversal that we didn't see until it became a collection of stuff that sucked.
Yeah.
To put it very eloquently.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. But it's a beautiful representation of this is happening in our time, and it never stopped happening. So people thinking that we're over it, or people thinking that we're at the end of it, it's like no, like that pretty much got you through then and now. Like I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Interesting. So if you have any more like this, we'd love to see and share, put in the comments. And I think they'd spark some interesting conversation. And like I said, we'll have them linked and they'll be in the video as we speak to them. And thanks for me.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. We have a website now, blackwhitethoughts.com. You can get it on our Facebook. You can pretty much get it anywhere, but it links all that stuff. It's got all our social media. It'll have all of these pictures and different videos and things like that. So you have like an education section. It's got information about us. You're going to be doing some blog stuff on there as well, so you can read. And yeah, you can just kind of, it's one place to stay up to date on everything, so you don't have to kind of run around and try to follow all these different social media platforms. But we appreciate your support, and we've been getting really good feedback, and we love that you guys are listening. I appreciate it. I enjoy this time.
Yeah.
It's really makes me think, walking outside, thinking about things in a different way. So
Absolutely.
it's pretty neat. But again, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.